Good evening, folks, and welcome to episode 196 of the Sticks in the Six podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Forbes, here with my co-host, Peter Barricchini. And Peter, I'm not sure if you saw the post-game tarps off post-game notes epi that I threw out there, but I figured Stolars and Nylander was doing it. Why the hell not?
You got it. You got to follow suit right there.
Absolutely. We got a lot to celebrate this episode, man. We're through the first round, up against a tough opponent once again in the second round against the Florida Panthers. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But before we do, how you doing this week, buddy?
Doing great. Yeah, like you said, I mean, pure jubilation and basically Leafs Nation right now, where, again, you win a first round. That's check one box off right there. But now the real work begins as now you come face-to-face with, a team that had your number in the regular season, team that had your number the first time you faced them. So This is a different – I know we're going to get to like everything later on, but you could get a sense that this team feels a little bit more well-equipped to dealing with teams like the Florida Panthers. You already got players from the other side coming over and adding them to your roster. Kind of get that little sense of, what kind of makes them tick, what are their tendencies kind of thing. So the fact that you're able to move on and beat a team that could kind of serve as a precursor for this, because Ottawa was just as intense, just as in your face. And now you're going to something a little bit more intense with the Stanley Cup champs. So, yeah, I mean, if you followed along too, I did a live stream with Boss Man Kyle. And you know what? You saw my reaction after every single goal. The first one kind of ruined it because of the fact that Yahoo had to play spoiler alert before the game even came back from commercial break. So we saw Maple Leaf score. Austin Matthews were like, oh, geez, thanks, Yahoo, for doing that. But we shut it off. Everything was a surprise later on, and we were absolutely thrilled, or I was thrilled with the outcome, given the history. And I told Kyle this too. I was hesitant of going on because of the last few years when I've done these live streams in the playoffs. Record is not so good as it was compared to the regular season. So you know what? The fact that they got a win column this time may sway me a little bit more to do more again this time around. Again, kind of like break the jinx kind of thing. But yeah, no, it was fantastic. Now basically on the round two right now. Now the real work begins. And if you're the Maple Leafs right now, and if you saw that, blueprint online video where Austin Matthews just like telling the guys, this is when the real work starts, we're going to do this. We're a team kind of thing. Even Scott Lawton getting the game puck after, blocking that shot that led to the empty net goal. Again, the sense and the mindset of this team is really different. You would not see that kind of camaraderie previously before. Like, I don't know. It just seems like Craig Berube actually has done something to this team that, has lit a fire in them, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say a couple of things that I noted were one of the things that Craig Berube said after the game was, you guys are a good team. Just go out and play your game. And he does have a structure. He does have a way of making this team kind of fall in line a little bit, but at the same time, he also understands that this is a very talented team from top to bottom. I mean, you got a team that's got Nick Robertson sitting out right now. This guy could have easily, given the time on ice, been a 20-goal scorer this season. Yeah. So I think that caught my attention, as well as, I think we'd all be lying if we sat here and said that when they scored to tie the game, when Ottawa scored to tie the game with like 5:49 or whatever was left in the third, I think there was a little bit of panic. There was a little bit of panic.
That there was a high stick possibly leading to that goal where maybe they could have challenged it.
Yeah, so I had this debate
on first glance because it kind of looked like it depended on where the puck hit, but the stick was high.
Yeah, I had this debate last night about the first goal St. Louis scored against Hellebuck and the Jets, and the whether or not there was goaltender interference. I think there's a fear of the unknown when it comes to these calls.
Yeah,
and there is still some subjectivity to the way that these calls are made, and I think that hurts the whole system, because last night really, like, that should have been a challengeable goal. I mean, he was slightly pushed, but Buchnevich basically turned. He was in the crease, but he turned Hellebuck's head the other way. I mean, I'm shocked they didn't challenge that, but I think they're afraid of getting that penalty, right? Like, they're afraid of the outcome, and because it's such a gray area, there's such an unknown. The same would be with this case. Like if they challenge for a high stick, it might have been, but if it's not determinable,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you're shorthanded, and it's I don't know.
Tie game, and what if they scored a goal at 3-2?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Then you're going back home, Game 7. We all know the Leafs' history in Game 7. So I don't know if you
Yeah.
wanted to take that chance. I feel like you're better off just going tied and trying to get it done, which they ended up doing in Max Pacioretty. And here's a guy we literally I after Game 5 I said, should Robertson go back in for Pacioretty?
Mhm.
He goes out, he gets the game-winning goal, he has a primary assist on the second goal, and he has 7 hits. So, once again, I'm sitting here having one of the Leafs shove it down my throat, and I will eat it the entire time if the Leafs continue to win. So,
I think everyone had that sentiment because of the fact that we understand that he just came back from an injury, or recovering from the injury. He didn't see any ice time whatsoever down the stretch.
yeah,
Comes in basically cold into the playoffs, but he basically had one of those, like, top comments that basically said, I'm trying to find it right now. You got to play each night like you're willing to die on that ice. That was before Game 5. And again, didn't quite have the foot speed. You could tell that he was sluggish, but at the same time, I felt the same way. I thought maybe you bring in Nick Robertson. I think maybe you even could have sat Pontus Holmberg or even one of Bobby McMahon for Nick Robertson because of how ineffective they've been to this point. I will say this: Bobby McMahon was a little bit more noticeable in Game 6. We were seeing that drive. We were seeing that power forward element to his game.
mm-hmm.
Pacioretty, again, like that play at the blue line that led to Nylander's goal, fantastic. Getting open and being in the high slot for that pass from Max Domi on that game winner, and a great screen by Holmberg, fantastic. But this is where the depth needs to show that consistency, not just from Pacioretty, but from guys like Domi, from guys like Holmberg and McMahon, where you kind of need a little bit more from them. And I'll say that too, where maybe, I should probably just stop playing armchair GM as well, or armchair coach, because, again, maybe Nick Robertson's speed and shot could have been effective because his results after coming back from a scratch are fairly high where he's more impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, Pacioretty scores the game-winning goal, or necessarily series-clinching goal, but it eventually led to that. So, if Patches can run away with this and even move up into that second-line spot, I think go with it. I mean, this is a guy that has the experience. That's why he was brought in for kind of like one last kick of the can kind of thing. I don't know if it will like continue on later on if the Maple Leafs choose to sign him or not. Who knows? But his presence was felt in a key moment. And, you saw the play from Matthews. You saw the play from Nylander. Stars showed up, but you got depth contributions as well. That's the key balance to a series win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, I think it's hindsight's 2020. We could look back at this and say like, yeah, we were all over Pacioretty. Maybe if he had gone out and had a terrible game in Game 6 and just stunk it up, we'd be sitting here saying the complete opposite. So I mean, it's great that we can sit here now and say that he scored the game winner. I'm like you. I hope he finds a way to run away with this opportunity. He said in his post game conference with Willie that he's just so many times he thought he was done playing hockey, and he's just happy to be out there and contributing and getting a chance to help the team win. So I think that's the mentality of the vet, right? Like that's the mentality of one of these guys going out there and knowing that this might be his last kick of the can, and he's doing everything he can to try and find a way to help the organization get it done. But I do want to say credit to the Ottawa Senators, because although there's tons of trash talk going on between Leaf fans and Ottawa fans and Mark Mathot and Paul Bissonnette, and there is a sense of this was a tough series to win. And we knew that going in. We said right off the hop we wanted Tampa Bay. You look at the list of injuries that Tampa Bay had after the series.
Evident why they lost in 5.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that Hedman's on a broken foot. Kucherov's got basically near broken wrist. Like, it's just insane. And Hagel with the concussion, he came out and spoke about that today too. just a ton of stuff going on in that organization. That would have been the ideal partner in round one. To have the Ottawa Senators, who do have a strong core, who do have two legitimate defensemen in Chabot and Sanderson, to come out and kind of have those two rebound games that they did. I mean, kudos to them, and kudos to Travis Green and Brady Tkachuk for finding a way to push this team over the hump and get a couple games. I mean, this is a team that had no playoff experience coming into this series,
Mhm.
and you could tell the first three games that they had no playoff experience. It didn't take them long to turn it on, and if I'm looking at it now, watch out Atlantic Division, because not only have we seen Boston fall out of it now, you still got Florida at the top. You still got Tampa at the top. You still have Toronto at the top. You got the Ottawa Senators coming up. You have the Montreal Canadiens, who put up a hell of a fight against the Washington Capitals,
Yeah.
and of course um, you've got Detroit and Buffalo, who really should be only steps away from taking that next step as well. So this is gonna be a tough division over the next number of seasons. And when you look at it right now, Toronto's really at the core of what they've got. And, it's a lot of stuff could happen and change this offseason. We know the Marner the Marner storyline. We know the Matthew Nye
Mhm.
storyline. So we can see a lot of things change, but kudos to the Ottawa Senators for finding a way to get it done.
I just want to say this too, like cringe posts aside from the start of the series to like, jeering and everything like that on both sides. It was a hard fought series. And again, everyone thought that maybe this could have been a cakewalk because of how inexperienced Ottawa was. When you're up 3-0, yeah, you could probably get a false sense of reality. And Maple Leafs kind of got that,
Yeah,
It's not
absolutely.
like they had a bad fourth game, maybe a couple bad bounces here and there, but they fought their way back only to lose in overtime from a seeing eye shot from the point. Same thing kind of happened in game 5 where they just completely stunk up, but they didn't let that get the best of them. And that to me was a big turning point for this team. And they had that mindset where they're not just going to bow down easily and let the history in the past take over. But for the Ottawa Senators right there, I mean, like you mentioned, they got the core pieces in place right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you just
Mm-hmm.
maybe add a little bit more to that depth, find a little bit more finish, find a little bit more, one or two more defenders on the back end that could be a little bit more consistent. You already got Omar and Net. They kind of essentially fit the bill of what the Boston Bruins were, that rough and tumble team that's very tough in your face that, again, kind of emulates like the Florida Panthers as well. So when the Boston Bruins are going down, you have the Senators basically overtake them with that same mindset. And yeah, and again, big kudos to them. And I think that because of the fact that it went 6, it was a good job for Toronto to close it out when they should have. They still had those opportunities. They still had that edge and that advantage, and they were confident in the fact that they were still saying, you know what, we're up 3-2, we're good. Usually, I get a little bit nervous when they say that in the past, but
Yeah, yeah.
I had confidence when Berube said that. I had confidence when Chris Tanev said that. I even had confidence when Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews said that. Usually in the past, you would hear like a little bit of a nervous tone, and maybe that would show a little bit. They were very stoic in their press game conferences, and I think that again, I think that attributes from Berube a little bit to give them that confidence, to give them be like, hey, you know what? This is a new regime. This is a new chapter of this core 4 era. I know he hates to use that term because it's more of a team thing, but they didn't bend. I mean, they bend, but they didn't break this time around. And to go up against a tough team like Ottawa, it was very impressive on both sides. I think that Ottawa is definitely going to be a threat in the near future. They got that under their belt. And again, it kind of reminded me of that 2016-17 team where it was their first kick at the can at the playoffs with a new core,
Mm-hmm.
albeit the Senators are a little bit older compared to the Maple Leafs when they were teenagers. But you have to feel confident that this is the type of hockey that could win. Brady Tkachuk, fantastic leader, just needs to dial it down. But then again, he's made for those kind of games, right? So we'll see what happens. But definitely there's, a lot of promise in Ottawa's future.
Yeah, Artem Zub also a guy that's super underrated on that team as well, and I think this series just made me hate Tim Stützle that much more. Again,
the
there's no
diving and all
way.
that.
There's
Yeah.
no way an NHL player should be able to go down that easily. There's
Yeah.
absolutely zero way. And I'll
I
stand by that. I will
I will
stand by
also
that.
say this too. I do like Artem Zub, but that should have been a penalty on Tavares. I
Oh,
mean, that hit on
1,000%.
Tavares.
A
Listen,
thousand
we all
percent.
know what was happening there. Like, let's be
Yeah.
realistic.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So given the 6 games in a row for Stolar, 6 starts in a row, first time in his career that he did or has had 6 starts in a row. Monday night, the Leafs open up round 2 against the Florida Panthers. His former team, the team that he won the Stanley Cup with, they've had his number so far this season. What are your thoughts? Are we sticking with Stolars? I think for me, I think you have to right now, but I want to hear what you got to say. You think Stoley's the guy moving forward in these playoffs?
I I understand why you want to try and go to Joseph Wall, but if that David Perron goal is the deciding factor for you, where maybe he didn't hug the post enough, he did probably cheat a little bit more. He probably left everything a little bit wide open up top. The puck went off the back of his head. Like, that's just a bad balance. You cannot control that. And if you're going to use that goal to decide that maybe you should go to Joseph Wall, which we love Joseph Wall on this pod, we think he's very calm. We think he's poised. We saw what he did last year to push Toronto to 7 games anyways. So
Yeah.
you're getting a good goalie if he goes in net. But to me, Stolars is definitely that guy because of that chip. He's got that ring for a reason. Again, no experience whatsoever, but even the fact that he doesn't have that experience, just like he has in the regular season, he's played fantastic. Again, a couple goals he would like to have here and there, but I'm pretty sure Sergei Bobrovsky would like to have a few goals here and there, and they won in 5 games. So Toronto going 1 extra game right now, to me, doesn't really move the needle on if you should make a change in net as a result of that. Like you said, Florida does have his number this year, and I'm trying to pull up the stats of like the breakdowns of the save percentage and record with team. So against Florida, he's 1-2, 886 save percentage, 3.06 goals against average. Not the best, but most of those were special team goals. Not a whole. I mean, again, that Florida did have the advantage in special teams in those first few games in the regular season, and I think that home game where they won 3-2, I think that was kind of like a bit of a momentum booster or confidence boost for him. That, yeah, you can't play well against your former team. You can't shut them down, make a big save. And that was a big thing, too. When Ottawa was pressing, guess who was there to make a timely save when he needed to? Anthony Stolars. He's got that size. He's composed. He's very square with the shooter. And his mobility in net can be aggressive at times, but when he's square and focusing in on the puck, he's dialed in. There's no doubt about that. I think that if you make that assumption or that one roster move where you go to a different goalie, then you're probably going to go back to that Swayman Omark era in Boston, where maybe you're going to go back and forth. You don't want to do that. Always stick with one goalie in the playoffs until there's a really, really bad game or back-to-back games like you saw with Stuart Skinner and the Edmonton Oilers, and you have to go with Calvin Pickard. Until you have Stolars has 2 really bad games where he's at fault, I don't think it's any question where you should touch him or pulling him and giving the starting role to Joseph Wall.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, the fact that it's been talked about all season long, how great of a communicator he is on the ice, that's a major piece for me. You can hear him every game you're watching now. You can hear him yelling
His
at the
voice,
players,
the stick, everything.
just being vocal back there, right? I think that's a huge benefit to have, especially in a playoff game, knowing that it's such a higher pace. There's so many. You're not opposing players aren't standing in front of the net when the defensemen are behind the net. There's more chasing of it. So he kind of can vocalize that to them as well. And again, the Stanley Cup ring goes a long way, and it's nothing against Joseph Wall. I think it's a benefit to know that you have Joseph Wall back there. I think the biggest thing is just knowing that Stolars has put everything he has into this team, and he wants to win. And he knows some of the guys from back in junior. I think. And now he's going up against his former team. What better way to have, or what better thing to have to kind of entice you to play a little bit harder than to go up against your former mates and knowing that they're looking for back-to-back Stanley Cups where you're looking to take your new team to that spot as well. So I think until he gives you a reason not to, you've got to keep going with him and roll with the punches. And he's going to have a bad goal here and there, but for the most part this season. I think he's been the most consistent piece of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, um,
Um, let's not forget that coming into this series alone, or like the series against Ottawa, Wall had as basically more experience than Anthony Stolarz in net. I think he had already like 7 games to his name. Stolarz won, but he came in relief, so that
yeah,
really doesn't necessarily count. And we already know Wall's track record that if something does happen, you could rely on him to shut it down.
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Um, Anyways, before we get to the next point here, just a quick word from our sponsors over at DraftKings Sportsbook. The NBA 82 game grind is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for all the high stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw dropping plays. I can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 30 points, 40, or more? It's your call. Here's something special for first timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. And since we're on the topic, from our first round predictions right now, so I did a point system where you get 1 point for the right amount of games, 1 point for the winner. Out of a possible, so we finished 6 series out of a possible 12 points. You're leading the way 5-4. So we did not do very well. We have not
Yeah.
done very well. That said, we both picked Toronto in 6. So I wasn't panicking going into Game 6. I said, I said it from the beginning. I'm sticking to it. Toronto in 6, and they fortunately were able to pull it out. But there
Kind
are
of
two
need
series to
Colorado
call
and
out.
Winnipeg to step up a little bit right
That's
now.
right.
If it's that close, and also too, I did not see LA going down that easy against the
No,
Oilers. I don't think
early
anybody
leads,
really had that much faith in the Oilers.
early leads every single
Mm-hmm.
game, and they gave it up every single game. And Calvin Pickard, credit to him, he came in and he's really rebounded that team. But before we jump into the second round predictions, obviously we're waiting on one series here. But last note on the Leafs as they get ready for round 2. Obviously last season there was some demons there. They lost to the Florida Panthers. Nick Cousins was the big reason as to why. Nick Cousins is no longer there. They took him out in the first round, so that's always a good thing to see. But they do have, as you can see, people are going to call them rats. I'm going to call them the 3 blind mice. Okay, so you've got Matthew Tkachuk, you've got Sam Bennett, you've got Brad Marchand. The 3 blind mice in that dressing room over with the Florida Panthers. They offer so much more depth to that organization. We don't know if Tkachuk is playing injured. He didn't look like it in round 1. Sam Bennett missed part of the end of the season there. He seems like he's on track at 100% healthy, maybe 95, but he's there. And Brad Marchand looks like a rejuvenated player as well, playing amongst those guys come playoff time. They're going to be a tough team. And Bobrovsky is on point. He has been playing incredibly well. The back end is looking good. Aaron Ekblad obviously will be back. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Seth Jones is there. He's a force to be reckoned with. We're going to tie this in, but depth scoring for the Leafs has not been there for the most part in this first round. How did the Leafs stack up? Is this a battle of the demons, or is it? This is a diamond opportunity for this team to take out a king in the East and and really have a shot at going all the way?
A bit of both, really. I do think that there are quite a few demons and storylines to go into this, series against Florida from the past. You talked about Sam Bennett. Remember when Matthew Nyes was first a rookie or playing in the playoffs in 2023? Bennett was there to, drill his head into the ice and there was no call and Nyes was out. We know that Nyes is not one to forget certain things. We saw what happened with the Zach Whitecloud hit. He said that, he probably should have kept his head up. But the first meeting back with Vegas, he dropped the gloves with Whitecloud, and he basically said that I'm going to stand up for myself, and rightfully so. I think right now you may see that. We didn't see that during the regular season, but I wonder if he still hasn't, forgotten that in the back of his head. Now that he's a sophomore, now that he's stronger, and we saw how many times the Senators try to go at Nyes, and he just shoved them down like it was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy is an absolute unit. He's an absolute animal. I think that he can keep up with the peskiness and the tenacity that the Panthers can bring. But in that essence, top six, I do think is kind of like evenly matched, where you do have a balance right there, where you have goal scorers and playmakers, but obviously Florida gets that edge because they're the Stanley Cup champs. Bottom six, I really do think Florida has that advantage. Now, you did get goals from Domi and Pacioretty in that series against Ottawa, but you need to find that level of consistency with overall play. You need the structure. You can't be making those blind passes. You can't be just throwing pucks at the bodies or into blind areas. You got to be very smart, because otherwise Florida's going to retrieve that and they're going to counter the other way and make you pay. In terms of, the depth, they've had their looks. They've had their chances, especially that fourth line. I really think that fourth, I wrote a piece about the fourth line, how they would been a difference maker and a line that Craig Berube can rely on. Again, they have a couple assists, no goals, but this would be a perfect time for that fourth line to try and increase a little bit of that production and match the depth of the Florida Panthers. Because we saw Eetu Luostarinen had a very strong performance. I believe Brad Marchand is in that middle six area. Anton Lundell, where he moves up and down the lineup, where he's a first, second, third liner, you don't know what's going to happen, but they have guys that could do some damage, especially in that top nine. So if that fourth line for Toronto can start to click and, capitalize on their opportunities, we've seen the zone time, we've seen the forecheck. If it feels like they're gripping their sticks a little bit too tight when those grade A opportunities are happening, as we saw, Steven Lorentz, try to deke on a 2-0 when he probably should have just deferred, got the pass, probably would have been an easy goal, and then you see David Perron come back and tie him up, and it led to nothing. I think it's a little bit of more of an incentive with him right now because of the fact that he's a former Panther. He has his cup as well, and he even came out with a great quote that he's friends with them, but at the same time, that's in the backseat. This is a different story right now. So he's got that perfect mindset, and I wonder if that fourth line with him, Lawton and Yarncroke could finally capitalize, because there's a great amount of balance, and that chemistry has been forming from the tail end of that season until now.
Well, yeah, add to that you've got Oliver Ekman-Larsson as well on the back end, a guy that was there last season who kind of rejuvenated his career last season as well. And the three former Florida Panthers, I think it's gonna be a big, and it's gonna be very enticing for them to beat their former comrades. So, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a hell of a series. I think it's going to be a hard fought series. They're going to have to win puck battles, and that's something that I didn't see from them in games 4, 5, and 6 in this Ottawa series. They were lucky to pull that one out in 6, and they got to be the first ones there. They have to be the first ones there, not afraid to take the hit to make the plays, and that's the type of way that Florida plays. And I think they need to counter with the same type of mental and physical toughness. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think there's a lot of reasons why the Maple Leafs can and potentially will win this series. With that, we've got 4 series all set and ready to go leading into this week. So why don't we quickly throw some predictions together here as we have in the past. Why not start off with the Leafs and Florida Panthers? Peter, what do you got for round 2?
Yeah, and I said this. I'm going to stick with this based on the preview that I did with THW, where me, Matt, and Joey, we basically talked to prep the series. I'm picking Florida in 7. I mean, I do think this is a different and like the mindset that the Maple Leafs have. It is a different team. It is a different year. They're better equipped to counter or keep up with the Panthers. I just think they still fall short. I think they're going to improve on that 5-game series where they were completely dismantled. I think they can keep up, but again, when you have the team like the Florida Panthers, it's very tough to come by because of how in your face, how gritty, and how opportunistic they are. Like you said, the Maple Leafs had their opportunities and capitalized them, but even 4, 5, and 6 kind of faltered away from them. They got to be gritty. They got to win those puck battles. They got to show that consistency throughout the lineup. They stick to their game plan. If they do win this series, and I hope they do, obviously, because, we're Maple Leaf podcast, we're Maple Leaf writers. If they do win, it wouldn't surprise me if they go on a cup run, because I think they can handle Washington and or Carolina in that conference final, and they could push themselves to the final. This is basically the last hurdle where you could push yourself and cement yourself as a legitimate top 4 team in this league and perennial Stanley Cup contender, where it's looked like that, but they haven't performed. If they're able to perform this time around, so be it. I think it could be a different outcome. I'm still going to say Florida in 7, but it's going to be close. And there are a lot of things that could swing in the Maple Leafs' favor should they execute very well.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm part of it. I'm going against you. Part of it is because I feel like there's
This is
going to
our
be a lot
year.
of growth. There's going to be a
You
lot
got
of
the
growth.
passion.
I have the passion. I always have the passion. It's gonna stick with me this time around. I say Leafs in 7. I think I think they're gonna grab at least one of the games at home in the first 2. I think
That's
this
going to be
first
huge with that matchup.
yeah, this first round win is going to go right to their feet. And obviously, we know Matthews is playing a little banged up. He has all season. We don't know what's coming from the other side, but we know that there has been some injuries through the last couple months of the season that could be playing a role as well. The Leafs didn't sit as long as Florida coming out of this first round, so I think that's gonna play in favor as well. And
Extra days rest, too.
yeah, I think
Florida.
it's gonna benefit the Leafs to kind of have gone 6 games rather than the 4-game sweep that we may have seen in the first round. So I'm gonna say Leafs in 7. There's a lot of reasons why they want to win this series. A lot of guys on the team that were there in Florida last year, and I think that's gonna play into their favor, especially with Chief at the helm. So
You're
yeah,
also
so
going against the grain, too, with Maple Leafs winning a game 7 right now.
yeah, I know. I may seem psychotic in this, but I've got this feeling. I've got this gut feeling,
I love it,
and
man. I love it.
they've made me eat my words before. So I mean, it could happen, but we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, sticking in the East, Washington, Carolina. I didn't have either one coming out of the first round. Um, Florida or Carolina is set to re-sign Frederick Anderson to a 1-year extension. Obviously, the Ovi story continues. Washington just seems unbelievable. Carberry's getting every ounce of effort out of these guys. What's your take and who you got?
I'm going to say Washington in 6. Funny enough, I did have Toronto to make the Stanley Cup final in my pool or NHL bracket, but solely because they played Tampa Bay, and I hope Tampa Bay would have beat Florida because easier path, but whatever. That's different right now. But I still have Washington going to the conference final. They're just, despite the potential scare that Logan Thompson had in net, I think that they're still well balanced, and I still don't trust Carolina's goaltending the deeper they go into the postseason, because that has always backfired against them. And they're still a really great team. They're still great with the puck possession style. It always works in their favor. They outshoot their opponents consistently. I know they just dismantled the New Jersey Devils. They capitalize on every opportunity. But the Washington Capitals are heavier, they're hungrier, and they play a meaner style. And again, that's playoff hockey right there. That's the reason why I'm picking them to go to that final, and I'm going to say Washington at 6.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you on this. Washington in 6. I think the Ovi storyline is now playing out in full.
Yeah.
He's didn't slow down that first round. They did it all without Prodas in that first round. He could
That
be an
too.
addition late in the second as well, so that could certainly help them. And Logan Thompson's just stood on his head. I think he took this Four Nations face off snub, and he's trying to shove it down their throats. And Yeah, I think Washington's a scary team when you look at them, but I got Washington in 6 as well. Jumping over to the West, obviously there's still one series that needs to be determined. We'll make our picks once those game sevens happen in the first round. But you got Edmonton, Vegas in the second round. This is going to be a crazy matchup. This is going to be a really enticing matchup. Who you got?
I see here again. I picked the LA for the same reasons why I'm going to pick Vegas, because of the fact that, well, Vegas is a much deeper team, and they have the pedigree to basically show that every single time. Minnesota made it interesting. I thought it would be a little bit more of an easier battle for Vegas, but Minnesota battle. But again, that's the resiliency and the core of Vegas coming together because they've been together for so long. I am going to say Vegas in 6. Again, the only reason why Edmonton would win the series is, once again, McDavid and Draisaitl carried them on their back. But the one thing that also I said was the reason why Edmonton would lose, the lack of depth scoring, was the reason why they won against LA. So I hope I'm right in the fact that Vegas still dominant at 5-on-5, dominant on the power play, has the defense to shut things down, and they could pepper Calvin Pickard with a ton of shots where maybe he may not be comfortable in net and he may get a little bit, overzealous, a little bit jittery, and a little bit nervous at times. So I'm going to say Vegas in 6, but again, I said Kings in 6 before, and I basically am eating my words for that. But Vegas is a different team; they're much deeper than LA, so I'm going to pick Vegas.
Yeah, they've got the Stanley Cup pedigree. They've got the players who want it. They've got the players who've won it before. Yeah, I'm gonna take Vegas in 5. I'm just not confident in Calvin Pickard as the starting goaltender. Stuart Skinner showed he can't get it done, and when it comes to the playoffs, you can't always outscore your opponents. They did in the first round. It was a high-scoring affair, but the second that this becomes a defensive battle, I think it's a different story. I think Vegas has got the blue line to do that.
Yeah.
They've got some strong blue liners. We've talked about White Cloud before. We've talked about Pietrangelo. We've talked about all those guys. Hannafin's there as well. There's a lot of depth on that blue line, and it's gonna really change the pace of the game for the Edmonton Oilers. I got Vegas in 5. As I mentioned, the last one we will pick once these seventh games are done in the first round. Outside of that, Peter, I don't have much else to talk about. I do want to mention, as you posted in our notes here, obviously Marc-Andre Fleury retired from the NHL after 21 seasons. The guy's numbers speak for themselves. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think there's any question about it.
None.
And did everything with grace. He backed up Matt Murray in Pittsburgh with grace. The way he was brought into Vegas and then shipped out, he did that with grace. And then the way that he ran these last couple of years, letting the youth in Minnesota find their footing in Philip Gustafsson and obviously Jesper Wallstedt, who's going to be making his way into the NHL in the next little while here as well. I really don't know what else to say about Marc-Andre Fleury aside from this guy is one of the classiest guys that has ever existed in the game. You hear the stories about how he did it outside of the walls of the rink as well, and in making sure that he kept things light with his teammates, and he was the prankster and the jokester in the room, and people like that can make going to work every day a lot better. So congratulations to Marc-Andre Fleury on one hell of a career. And we'll see you in the Hall of Fame in Toronto very, very, very soon. So a round of applause for you and everything that you did in your NHL career. Outside of that, Peter, Monday night, the Leafs kick off at 8:00 with the Florida Panthers. Round 2 of the NHL playoffs. Our friend Alex Hobson closes it out for us as we close out episode 196 of the Sticks in the Six podcast. And with that, go Leafs go.